Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over what is happening in the market, what we can expect moving forward, all that good stuff. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day the market is open as the market is trading. So definitely check that out, especially today. Obviously, a lot of posts today, of course, throughout the day entirely. So definitely check it out, especially in the morning when Tesla was very volatile. So yeah, that link is below if you're interested. For just $3 a month, gives you access to the first tier, Tesla, of course. Second tier includes NVIDIA. Third tier includes non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks. And also on the weekend, I do chart requests with members on Discord. So definitely check it out if you're interested. Link is below. Love to have you there. Well over 600 members now. Pretty awesome stuff. But jumping into a Tesla with another pretty painful day. Second day in a row now of painfulness, essentially. Closing down, almost, we'll say 4% on the day, closing at $327.50. So what does this actually mean for Tesla stock? Is this bearish? Is it over? Is the bullish run over? Was this actually just a dead cat entirely, right? Remember how I mentioned the dead cat potential or possibility, right? Some people were laughing up here again, right? They're like, there's no way this could be a dead cat. I mean, I literally specifically said that this is the exact same situation happening that NVIDIA did right over here, right? People were laughing here, same idea, and then NVIDIA tanked pretty aggressively actually too. Tesla, is this the start of that aggressiveness? Could be. Again, there's still both scenarios. We'll look at both scenarios, right? So the first thing I want to take a look at overall is, of course, going to be kind of the trend, right? What is still, in terms of the trend type indicators, what are they saying, or at least suggesting that the trend is right now, right? Is the trend actually still up from that perspective? Well, one aspect I like to look at in terms of trend is exponential moving averages, right? Are the exponential moving averages above the smaller ones, the smaller time frames, so the 8 and the 21, are they above the 50? If they are, I assume the trend is up. If they are below it, I assume the trend is down. Kind of like, I mean, this is an extreme example, of course, but you can see they were up the whole time here, and then they crossed bearish here, obviously below the 50, and then we were pretty much bearish the whole time. Then they pretty much started getting a bullish crossover here. Then we got bullish. And, as we stand right now, we, of course, are still bullish, right? So that's a nice sign. Another cool indicator to use in terms of, let me go ahead and delete that. In terms of just, determining trend is actually from, Flux Charts. They have a lot of indicators, but the one I like the most personally, because I like trend, right? I like to look at what the trend is, right? I like something, I just like to look something very quickly and just be like, is it up or is it going down for the most part in terms of the overall trend, right? There's many ways to do it. You can just look at structure, of course, as well. But this is a pretty nice indicator as well when it comes to it, right? For instance, you can see, every time it's green, the trend has been clearly pretty much up, right? When it's red, you can see the trend was, well, pretty much down. And in this case, you can see similar to the exponential moving averages, it's still green. So, even when we had that massive drop here, it is still green, right? The bands over here, you can see they're very much still green. So suggesting that, this and the exponential moving averages, that the trend for Tesla is still up. And obviously, if you take into account the fact that, well, we're still technically in this rising channel that I've been talking about on the daily, yeah, all these factors suggest the fact that the overall trend for Tesla, despite these kind of shenanigans, if you will, that are happening right now, is still up. Now, can that change? Of course they can change, but these are suggesting that the trend is still up. Now, of course, I do want to mention the fact that Flux Charts is a sponsor of today's video. It's a pretty cool kind of bundle of indicators they have in their premium indicator bundle, right? Which of course costs money, but you use my link down below, you get a discount, where just a bunch of different indicators combined into one. You can, toggle things on and off as you see fit, right? There's a lot of different situations. You have like trend coloring for the candles themselves. You have the Gauss, I'm not sure I pronounced the ribbons you can see here, kind of similar to the retracement wave. There's a lot of them like that too. So definitely check it out. They have a lot of free indicators as well, but the link is down below if you want access to the paid ones as well, or the premium ones, I should say, which is pretty cool. So definitely check it out. Pretty cool stuff. But nonetheless, now I want to take a look at, other things, right? But what's potentially suggesting other aspects? Well, we have the MACD, right? Remember how I mentioned the MACD is still bearish? Remember how I used this example back here? People that have been following for quite some time, I'm sure remember how back here, over here and over here, right? Take a look at the MACD over here and over here, right? So Tesla had a bullish MACD flip on this candle right here, and then it had a pretty decent sell-off while the MACD maintained bullish, and now we're doing arguably the exact opposite. And this is what I was suggesting a while ago. We could be doing the exact opposite. Now we had a MACD bearish flip on pretty much this red candle right here when, Elon and Trump were having their squabble, I guess you can say. And then what happened, right? What happened? We had a beautiful, beautiful bounce, pretty much the exact opposite of this bounce here, right? In this case, it was a bounce, well, to the downside, a bearish bounce. In this case, we're getting a bullish bounce to the upside. But in this case, the MACD is now continuing to stay bearish. So that is an interesting aspect, at least in my opinion, right? Let's see how that actually plays out. Are we just mimicking exactly what happened here with these situations, just literally the opposite, direction essentially? That is still a possibility, right? And of course, the last thing to mainly talk about is, of course, going to be the fact that, well, Tesla is holding a crucial level, right? Why is this a crucial level? Well, one of the crucial levels, it lost another one, which I'll talk about right now. But it is holding a crucial level, which of course is essentially this area or bundle, if you will, of the exponential moving averages. And of course, the zone that we did hold for quite some time, all the way when we were consolidating into that bull flag, right? It did kind of find some bounce level from that region, which is so far, not too bad. And I like the fact that it actually held this low over here that we set on Friday, right before the massive pump that we had on the robotaxi event or news, if you will. I like that it held that low. It didn't drop below that. That is a good sign. But what is not a good sign, right? Well, not a good sign is, well, again, the MACD is bearish, right? The stochastic actually lost 60, so we'll need to go ahead and find some nice momentum soon. But the main thing I personally don't like, ultimately, again, if I had to remove everything and you're not allowed to use any indicators at all, structure, right? Just structure, the market structure, just simple patterns, pretty damn effective, honestly, right? Candle patterns, very, very effective, right? But the structure, well, number one, I mentioned how the structure is a concern because, back here we're making those higher highs, higher lows. Then we set up a fresh lower high, lower low, lower high, higher low. And then we technically did actually break above this and set up a fresh higher high relative to this. But the larger picture, ultimately, the fact that I don't like is the fact that ever since we broke structure here, I've been talking about this could be a dead cat bounce if you take the Fibonacci's right into the green fibs. And so far, that does seem to be the case. Now, the thing I also don't like that happened today was the fact that we lost the mid 330s, right? That's just, I've been talking about the mid 330s being very, very crucial. We lost it, right? That is not ideal. Like, this is not the situation the bulls want to be in, right? Because now, as far as I'm concerned, starting tomorrow, well, this area should now, be treated as a resistance, right? Again, we had it as a massive support over here. You can see during this consolidation, every time we came into this like 333, 335 region, constant support, constant bounces even, right? Even got another one here. And then what happened? We started kind of, potentially getting close to losing it into the, of course, massive gap down of, the Elon Trump thing. And then we came back into it. And then we spent pretty much a week and a half treating it as a resistance. And then we finally broke above it, which was good. This was good. But I mentioned, any retest, which we most likely will get, and we did, needs to hold 333 to 335, roughly, of course, right? We didn't. That's the problem. We did not really hold it. Now, we're not substantially far below it, but we're definitely, we're definitely below it, though. That's the problem. And that's the part I'm not a fan of, right? Because this, to me, tells me the fact that if the robotaxi launch, etc., and this is all we got from it, and we pretty much erased the whole move already, what is going to give Tesla the strength to move higher, right? Why is it going to move higher? The only thing I could potentially think of is if Tesla announces that lower cost model that they've been talking about for quite some time. I mean, they said it'll happen in the first half of the year. Hey, guys, we got about a few days left. So hopefully that happens pretty much this weekend, right? But, losing the 333, 335 region, yeah, that's not ideal, right? That's not what you want to be seeing. So that I'm not a fan of. I'll be completely honest with the stochastic dropping, the SMI crossing bearish. There are some concerning signs here. There are some concerning signs. Now, it doesn't mean it's all over. No, of course not, right? We can still maybe get back up and reclaim it and then break above these levels. That is a possibility. But it's one of those things where, I definitely would rather see it than hope it happens, if that makes sense, right? And the final thing I'll talk about today, the two final things is on the 1 hour, we could be printing a bit of a bear flag here. So obviously, here we had a false wedge, which I mentioned could be a false wedge, which it was. And then we, of course, had this bear flag that developed here, which ended up playing out pretty nicely. And now we're setting up what looks to be another bear flag as we're kind of getting a bear flaggy consolidation within this region after this very sharp sell-off, which if this plays out, can definitely take Tesla even lower. And this could, what the hell is that? This could take Tesla, if, of course, this bear flag plays out, right, this could easily take it back to, pretty much $300 per share, which is right to the bottom of this daily rising channel, right, which would bring it all the way here, which, technically speaking, would be a pretty good risk reward because, well, now, either you get a daily close below the, rising channel, in which point, it's probably going substantially lower than that, or, it bounces from here. That is a possibility. That is still a very real possibility that we can't fully discount just yet. So that's what I'll be looking for in the days to come. But yeah, so we have the bear flag there. That's, a potential concern going into as early as tomorrow. And then, of course, on the 4-hour chart, I've been mentioning this rising wedge that I'll be watching. And, this rising wedge is a bit of a concern. Why is it a bit of a concern? Because, well, a rising wedge, naturally speaking, bullish inside, usually breaks to the downside. We have arguably gotten that break to the downside where you can see this 4-hour candle, the first 4 hours of the day, essentially, closed, well, below the wedge, right? Nicely below the wedge as well. So now the way I look at it is there's a good chance any push up from here, which, you know, we could be potentially getting maybe while we continue setting up that 1 hour bear flag I shared, you know, back into 333, 335, could just be nothing more than pretty much another mini dead cat bounce, mini bear flag into a continuation lower that'll look something along the lines of this, right? So there's a lot of things to watch for Tesla here. It's in a very interesting spot to say the least, but I guess if there was one thing to take away from this video, I very much dislike the fact that it lost that mid 330s. Not a fan of that, like, at all. That is very, or at least it could be very, very concerning. Unless maybe tomorrow we reclaim it, which would be a good sign. But if we can't reclaim it tomorrow and we continue getting resisted, and especially if we come up into it and show clear rejection, like a wick at the top of the candle, you know, things like that, that would be not something I would want to be seeing from a bullish perspective. And that to me would further convince the fact that at the very least we come back down to the bottom of this rising daily channel, which at that point we could get a nice, beautiful bounce off like we did here, or this finally ends up being the time where we finally crack it and we go probably into a pretty bearish mode on Tesla stock, which would be not very good to see. But yeah, all in all, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. In terms of options flow, take a very quick look at Tesla stock. Pretty mixed actually throughout the day here. You can see very, very mixed. Bearish in the morning, very bearish in the morning. Someone got 4.5 million puts on Tesla stock as the market opened, I think, yeah, at 342.93. So they're, I'm sure, very happy about that. We got some nice bullish flow here. Of course, that's when Tesla started bouncing, and then we kind of got mixed flow towards the end of the day, right? So very mixed towards the end of the day, not really seeing it one way or the other. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.